good point. So, so that is what you just shared, Eva, is with resonating with your patient, standing behind them, and resonating with the morphogenetic field of the patient, and feel their pain and feel what they feel, or maybe even what they think, or something in the past. That's exactly how it works, because the patient comes to you for help, and therefore has extended unconsciously an invitation to you to participate in the morphogenetic field. That is actually today's topic, the position of the helper. If you would be in a bus, if you were riding a bus, and you would be standing behind somebody, you would not pick that up, right? If they have pain in their left knee or in their right arm or whatnot. And if you pick something up, that's what we call an empath. You never know if it's from this person, if it's from another person. You don't know. You just pick something up, yeah, but you cannot really nail it down. So that's interesting, and that just comes to my mind. I haven't thought of that in ages, but when I was training, I was at a big formal dinner, sitting next to a person and a woman, and we were, talking about dinner, and she was in the state of one, she wanted something from me. I wasn't quite sure what it was, right? At that time, yeah. And then all of a sudden, I picked up that she has 2 kids, and that she has problem with their 2 kids, and all this information came, yeah. And then I asked her, what is wrong with your kids? And she just fell off her chair almost, because she had these 2 kids and she had problems with them. But she has also extended to me unconsciously the invitation to help, because it wasn't coincident, and she was sitting on my right side. We will talk about that later as well, that she had this place there and kind of engaged me in this conversation in her attempt to get help. Yeah. So these things you can connect with the morphogenetic field in a daily situation, as long of somebody else's family, as long as you are in the right position as a helper. Yeah. And that can be in some odd situations, like I have just explained, unexpected situations, or it can be in very professional and deliberate situations, as Eva has just shared. Yeah. So that can happen, and that is a good thing. And now, in today's module, you learn to how you are obeying the orders of love of Bert Hellinger as a helper. So you're not imposing another issue onto the family system instead of helping, yeah? Because if you wouldn't do that, then you wouldn't be a good helper. Okay. Okay, very good. So that's right, Eva. In module 2, we were talking about the morphogenetic field and finding what meant, meaning, using of the words. Is there anything else that you want to share that stuck with you, that you have maybe when you have revisited the video recordings, have learned or deepened knowledge about or understood better about the teaching content last time?
I one more time revisited that part of those sentences, of those strong words, and each of that sentence I try to feel in my side what kind of feelings it starts to urge in myself. So it was really, really helpful to rewatch that part again and just to feel how it works. Of course, I remember how when we say, for example, for partners, like yes, because we are in balance, we must be in balance. For children, we say yes, they say for us, please, and then thank you and yes, so they can go further. And the how it's in English, the order of those words in each kind of relationship. Yeah, that was really useful to remind it again and again.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Anything else from anybody else, maybe?
So between the last module and now, I've been to Pakistan and back. And it's the first time I went in 30 years, and the first time I saw my dad's grave. And it was really interesting for me because I kind of was a bit worried about how I would be when I go. But when I because we'd done the work in the last module, it was I went with the intent.
Oops, you're breaking up. You worked with the intention.
You know, if I'm going and I'm only going once, I have to say the full please, and I went with that intention. And there was some resistance and stuff, but I managed to do it, and it was fascinating because I kind of went with the attitude of peace, and I left with the attitude of peace, and it feels like something is complete. I can't really make sense of that. And so it for me, even the piece that you said at the beginning about like the morphogenetic field kind of telling us who are the people that we work or guiding them to us. Actually, I feel like that even about this, you know, and this program, because it's like things come to you at the time when you need them, you know, and I can't explain how that happens or why that happens, but there is this piece about kind of allowing it. So so the process of just those 3 words in terms of the please, thank you, and you know, I didn't say yes, and I couldn't, but I said please and thank you, and it felt like it was enough and it was right, you know. And I've also been observing it in my own family relationships and at work and things, and I don't know, it just feels as if it kind of it removes some of the tension. That was really interesting.
Very good observation. I'm so pleased that you use the teaching content of module 2 in your own life, because that's where you start, and that's when you start to heal on yourself. Yeah, you don't need to come to a workshop. You don't need to have a one-on-one session. You can do that just by applying everything you learned in your own life. So thank you for sharing that. And it's totally okay, Saida, to stay even with just the please, or even just the thank you. There is no rush. There is no sense of that's like in yoga. There's nothing to achieve in the end. It's the way, it's what you do in this moment is important. There is no perfection or finalization of anything, really. And that is great that you experience that for yourself, because then you can work with clients in this way. Yeah. And that's also what we talked today about, their expectations and how you deal with that. It is, that is our work, is to acknowledge what is, also acknowledging how far the client can go, how far the family system will go. Yeah. To be very, very observant about that and obeying to it, because otherwise, again, we would kind of defeat the healing process by bringing disorder into the family system instead of order, or helping the order, right? So that's exactly the point, and that's wonderful that you have experienced that for yourself. Thank you for sharing. So, is there anything, Navjoti and Heba, you want to share as well before we start?
Yeah, for me, I started to use the words a little bit more consciously, especially please, avoiding it as much as I can.
Very good. Let's ask another question. How about the sorry? Did you notice any change by using the word sorry?
I'm also trying to be more conscious about using that one. So I'm trying to be more with thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
That's great. How do you feel about that? Did you feel a change?
It feels more like I'm having my keeping your personal boundaries more. It's not like letting any, not making your life like a public park where whoever can step in and out whenever they want.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course.
It's like having a gate and choosing who gets in and who doesn't.
And you had that in particular with the word sorry, this gateway open.
sorry and please.
And please, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Both of them. Yeah. So I'm working with
Very good.
thank you more.
Yeah.
Even yes, I'm not. I'm avoiding yes. Not
So
using no, but also doing
yeah,
yes.
yeah. So the good news is you can use the word please if you don't forget about the thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the gate is already closed immediately. So if you're at the table, you ask, if you're in a restaurant, you ask the neighbor table for the salt because you don't have it. You ask them, can I please have the salt? They give it to you. You say deliberately, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, and then that's done. Gate is shut. I like the gate picture. It's really nice. Very good. Thank you, Heba. Anything else?
Not really, no.
Good.
As like in a daily life, no.
Very good. And Navjoti, what about you? You want to share something?
Am I audible? Yeah. Um, yeah, one in action is the please exercise we have done with our parents last time. I think that is the single most therapeutic experience I've had in all my life after having millions others, because nothing I did would shift things between me and my mother. But after that, when we spoke, it was entirely different. The sense of ease that was there. So the please then was followed by a very good, clear yes, and that was dramatic. And so yeah, then tuning back into the significance in real life. Yeah, for one, I've stopped saying sorry. I immediately acknowledge that I did this, and suddenly you see the shift in people's expression. So they are surprised that you spelled it out, and that's much more powerful than sorry.
Yeah.
So,
Wonderful. That is wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Very good to hear. Very good. Thank you. Okay, right. Let's go into today's teaching content. All right. So welcome to Module 3, Part 1. Module 3 is titled Staying Centered in the Truth. And now you know it already. This is another book title of Bert Hellinger. I think it's even his third book. It's, of course, I have kind of translated it differently. It is in German, Die Mitte fühlt sich leicht an. That would be literally translated into English, the middle, the center feels, what is the opposite of heavy? Feels light. The center feels effortless. The center feels, unburdened. That's what it literally says. So that means the result is what you have actually shared here already in the first 10 minutes that we talked, is that when you feel the shift in the work, right, with a mother, for example, or with a patient, or in day-to-day life, or with your whole family, whatever you have shared just now, you feel already it feels lighter. You feel more peaceful. You feel more centered. You feel more yourself. You feel more you have boundaries. You feel more who you are in the right place. And that is beautiful. And that's exactly what family constellation does. And now you can also probably explain it better to others when they ask you what training you are doing. Because that is the result. The result is not, how I use this orange and the onion picture, right? I did that, right? You remember that? Yeah. So the result is not when you do family constellations that you peel whatever issue it is away and you have a fruit to bite into and it's sweet. Yeah. No, it is not euphoric. normally. It's not that. It's the onion. The layer comes off, and it's the biggest layer, so it feels lighter, less heavy, less burdens on the shoulders. Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. We are revealing what is already there. We are not providing something that's not there, like the fruit, you know. And that's you can only work with that in your work when you have experienced it for yourself. So the self-observation is really key also to be a good facilitator. So staying centered in the truth, I thought that would be a nicer title for what we do today and tomorrow and the day after. And what exactly that is, let me bring that up. In part 1, which is today, it's the art of helping. But Helling has written a whole book that thick about the art of helping. I'm not 100% sure if it's translated into English. I read it in German. Maybe it is, maybe you find it. It's super interesting. But I will break it down for you in this course, of course, in these 3 hours to the essentials. Part 2, how to structure a workshop. That will be tomorrow. And then part 3, we are talking about personal development, unsolved emotions, and troubleshooting. So we have a full program as always. So let's dive right into it. No, I just need to bring that up a little bit. So today we are talking about the art of helping. Why would we even need to talk about that? Helping is simple, isn't it? You just do that what you've been asked to do, and then you're helping, right? Exactly. It's not quite so. So what we are talking about is, first of all, yes, Heba?
Yeah, I think even, of course, the golden rule is never to give help unless we are asked to.
Yeah.
Like everyone knows, don't give advice unless you're asked to give it, or help unless you're asked to help. But then again, when we are helping or giving advice, we should always remember that not to manipulate or try to control the other party, and to remember our position, that is not to cross the line where we like maintain the right distance, where we can help but not really interfere.
That's the golden rule, as you said. That's the golden rule of helping. Yeah. And you wouldn't believe how many people are actually not obeying to it. Do you know people who talk unasked? Like, oh, you should do this, or oh, you would benefit from that, or I see, especially if you have like intuitive friends, right? They all of a sudden see, oh, I see you have an issue to resolve with your grandmother. You know, like, how does that make you feel? Certainly not good, right? Yeah.
Pressured. Sometimes it feels like pressured.
It's like
being under pressure.
Yes, it puts you under pressure. Very good. That's exactly what it does. It's, yeah. So this is exactly the gateway that is open into your, you know, your boundaries are down, because when you feel under pressure, you let your boundaries down. You are not staying centered, you know? Yeah. But the good news is, as more as you are yourself peeling all these layers of onions away and coming to your center, as less you meet people who would ever do this to you. You don't even need to react to it, because you're already emitting, like you're already on a higher vibration, if you want to put it that way. We learn about that in the next module, module 4, and you are you're not susceptible to these people. or to say they wouldn't dare to tell you what to do. You know? So this all goes hand in hand. So we talk about today the position of the helper. We are talking about how to lead a client. We're also talking about how to lead a group. We are in the wake of that, we have to talk about group dynamics. We have to talk about leading the representative in a group. How we use and changing the words in this setting. And we will also talk about traps we might fall into in regards to leading. Yeah. So hands up, who of you has already facilitated leading any kind of groups? Any kind of whatever, workshops or Saida? When was that? What was it?
Yeah, in the pandemic, I was leading some workshops online, just in terms of like mental health and how to deal with some of the challenges that are happening. I've done some workshops in the community and at work as well, facilitation of personal development, things like that.
Mm-hmm. How many people did you have?
It varies. I suppose the smallest one can be something, 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
I think the largest one I've done is about 80.
Mm-hmm. Very good, thank you. Anybody else has led groups so far? Eva?
Yes, in my daily lives, I have each week like leading the group because we have, for example, group exercises. But also during COVID time, I had those online workshops and also practice lectures. And the number of people, it was starting from 12 till 30. So it was also very it's almost my daily life to lead some kind of group.
Ah, very good. Oh, that's good. Okay. And Navjoti?
Yes, so I've been a teacher by profession, so of course leading the class of children, but lately I've stepped into working with teachers, mentoring teachers, and we are a Waldorf school. So yeah, so that one. Yeah.
Very good, very good. Yeah, I have a picture how that might look. Very good. Okay. Very good. So you do have, most of you have experience with leading a group. So some things will be might familiar to you and other things might not. So we'll see how that goes. Now we talk about the facilitator, and we're talking about specifically the facilitator of family constellation. And I want to start with a quote from Bert Hellinger. All you have to do is to place yourself in the position as a facilitator and trust the field to guide you all the way. That is what a facilitator does. The facilitator is not the doer. Yeah, the doer is the client. The doer are the representatives. The doer is the field, not the facilitator. And that's good news, because that takes a lot of stress away from the facilitator, right? If you think about, you don't need to do anything, right? Well, that sounds easy. Of course, not everybody can just stand up and say, I'm a facilitator, I'm not doing nothing, and then it would be a fantastic family constellation. That's not how it works. But the doing comes, or the movement comes out of knowledge and experience, and not because you do something. Yeah, understand the difference? It is a movement that you also get from the field. So you are part of the morphogenetic field as a facilitator. And that's where it comes from. And you just know what you learn in the course is the knowledge about the orders of love and observation. So if you would call the doing of the facilitator as the observation and the gathering knowledge and experience before you work with clients, and then observation is key.
Maya, I'll log off from my laptop now so that I
Okay.
can join from the phone, okay?
Good. Okay, see you in a
I'll
bit.
just leave it. Yeah.
So the position of the helper is at the bottom of the system next to the client. So remember the family system. We start with the generation of the client. We always say that is the first generation, right? Remember this little picture from the first module? The first, where I had this animation, the first generation is the client. The second is the parents, the third is the grandparents, the fourth is the great-grandparents, and then we have 5 to 7 ancestors, and then the source. Now the helper is next to the client at the bottom of the family system. Why is that? Because the helper is the last one who came into this family system, right? It wasn't in there before the client. The client has invited the helper in. So now the helper is not above the client somewhere, it's right next to the client at the bottom of the system. That is to obey the what order?
The second order.
Say it again?
Yeah.
No, balance? No. Who comes first? The
Could
order
you
of
repeat the question? Yeah. The
the
order
order
of love, but
yeah, the second order of love precedence. Right? So if the helper would think, well, because I have all this education and I have all this experience, yeah, I come before the client, then it would be a breach of the order of precedence. Because in this case, the client was first in the family system and then the helper came, right? Okay. So remember that the helper is always positioned at the bottom of the system next to the client. If you have a child, if you have a mother consulating for a child as a substitute or a surrogate, yeah, it's not the mother's issues, it's the child issue. Then the child is the first generation, the mother is the second, although she's the one working with you, and you as a helper position yourself next to the child, yeah, at the bottom of the system. Remember, and I can't repeat it often enough, every individual has a different family system. Even if they are siblings, they have different family systems. With everyone you work, you have to figure out first who belongs, first order of love, who belongs, yeah? And then where do they belong, which positions? That's the second order of love. Okay.
Can I just chat with you again then? So if you're working, so for example, if I bring my one of my children in, my child is the first generation.
Yeah.
I'm second generation. The child's grandparents are the third generation, and it works that way.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
However, just because we had this topic, I just want to give you a little bit of more information, not to confuse you, just to make the picture whole. If a mother comes, mainly it's mothers, sometimes a father. If a mother comes to consulate for the child, you as a facilitator, resonating with the field, you will know if the mother is facilitating as a surrogate for the child or if she's facilitating her own issue that she has with the child. Like sometimes it's the distress of the mother that brings her, and the child is perfectly fine. Just the mother is projecting her whatever fears she has onto her child because she's unable to look at herself and she's unable to accept that for herself. That is a pitfall you can fall into. In this case, you are consulating actually for the mother. And in this case, the mother is the first generation. Yeah. because you
sorry,
look.
Mike, that's a question. So you
Yeah.
say that from the facilitator from the field, they would know that whether the constellation is actually being done for the mother or the child. So it would like come to like a feeling to the facilitator.
It's an information, as pretty much everything you get from the field. I call it an information. I wouldn't call it a feeling. Feeling can be deceptive, and they are you know, in the solar plexus where you feel it, and the informations that are coming from the field are neither in your head nor in your solar plexus. They are straight into your heart, if you will, into the center, into the here. That's where you get the information, right? So I give you an example. I give you an example. I had a client in a workshop. She was very emotional, let's put it that way, and she was constantly talking about her child, yeah, and that she's here for her child, and her child is this, and her child is that. And listening to her, I got no information that something's wrong with the child, right? There was nothing, and it never even made sense, yeah, what she was saying. And then I asked her, what about you? Yeah. And then it's like she completely opened up. So you can remember in family constellations, you are allowed and supposed to test the field. Yeah. You test, is the information I get correct or not? Another test would be, yeah, if it's a little bit more complicated and you don't know exactly, you ask her to, you know, stop talking. You would ask a representative to be the son or the whatever child it is, let's say the son, yeah? And then you see immediately if the son is happy or if the son is not happy, yeah? And if the son is happy, which would be the case where I have just reported about, then you know it's not the son, it's the mother. So I don't like to call it feeling, Heba, and you will see that when you start to practice in the practice workshops, it is a knowingness that you get. You just know, right? There's for you, there's no doubt.
So Maya, you mentioned one interesting fact. So if we find the person that we are supposed to be constellating for, as you said, happy, so does this mean that there is no problem really, or is it possible that someone would really have a problem but they're like oblivious and they would seem happy because they're not really aware that they do have a problem?
Now, that would be the case. That would be the case when you would work with this person, but that wouldn't be the case when you work with representatives.
Okay.
The representatives are always showing the truth of the soul movement.
Okay.
So if you would have this, let's say this child would be there in person with his mother, and he would act really happy, and then you would ask, and you would fall for it, then you be probably misguided. If you would ask a representative to stand up, and the representative would probably go on their knees or lie on the floor or whatnot, then you know that this happiness is fake. Yeah, that the sun is displaying. But the representatives are not lying. That's the soul movement. They cannot fake anything. And remember what I said about laughing. If a representative is laughing in a family constellation, that is not happiness. That is the opposite, right? If you're in doubt, rewatch module 2. That's very important that you don't mistake that. You will not see happy representatives in a family constellation. That would be very odd. You would see relieved representatives in a family after the constellation, but normally not while you do the constellation. If you have a happy representative, then you can ask them to sit down because they don't play a role. That would just mean that you have asked too many people to come into the field. You didn't focus on the the people necessary, which is fine, but that's how you know it. Remember the flow of
one
love.
more question.
Hmm?
So this means that we know that our work is complete when the representative shows relief.
Yes, at least the client's representative. At least the client, often also other representatives. Hmm? And the client often doesn't show that at all. It's often just a representative, because the client, this is why they have representatives. Yeah, because the client cannot express, they are too much in their head, too much in their emotions. No, they cannot get out of there. They need the representative to look at it and to show what the soul movement is. Okay? Good. Remember, I want to finish that sentence. Remember, way back in module 1, I think first part, when I talked about the stream of love and how that works. The information the morphogenetic field held that we are accessing through the method of family constellation are traumatic experiences. They are painful memories. Yeah. There are no good memories in the field. Good memories are turning into love. That let the love flow. That is the flow of love. That's our stream. Yeah. Good memories are not revealed in family constellation. And when we are talking about the morphogenetic field and how we work with them, I'm absolutely sure there are countless fields, yeah, existing. And there's possibly a field with good memories. That is not, I have no idea. How can I know? But I know in family constellation, the field we are working with only stores traumatic experiences. And if you learn the basics, and if you really learn them and shall I say it, make it a body memory almost, yeah, then you can't answer your question, all your questions that you have, you can answer yourself, because it always goes back to the basics. Yeah. How can a representative be happy? Only if he's not needed. Yeah, for the constellation. Okay, good. Right, so coming back to the position of the helper, at the bottom next to the client, the family system comes always first. That meaning that's not the client who comes first. Although the client came to you, the client has paid. But no, you are not working for the client. You are working for the family system. The client is a messenger from the system. The family system has sent the client to you, right? And sometimes you got these cases that people come and they say, I don't know why I'm coming. I just saw you, or I just saw this event or whatnot, and I had the urge to come, but I really don't know why. That's a clear sign, yeah? And if they come with an issue, then they have the issue because the family system wants them to have the issue, to look at it. And therefore reveal what is a hidden dynamic. And finally, how to heal the wound of the family soul. So the family system is who you are working for, not the client. We just discussed it before. What you do as a position of the helper, you connect with your knowledge and experience. Yeah. So yes, knowledge and experience are absolute necessary prerequisites to be a good helper. But once you have gathered these prerequisites, you can relax and you don't need to do much. Yeah. You just need to connect to them. That's a very, very important point, and that might be a surprise, but as a helper, you don't want to achieve anything. There is nothing to achieve. There is certainly no outcome that you are providing. Yeah. The client comes to you, yes, with expectations. Let's say they have partner problems and they want to meet their partner for life. Yeah. That is not your job to provide them with a partner for life. Absolutely not. And when the family constellation that you are facilitating and you are in the right position as a helper is revealing a mother issue, then that's what you work with. Or is revealing an entanglement 5 generations ago, that's what you work with. It does not matter what the client wants. Yeah? And you don't need to be in any way, shape, or form undecided about that, because whatever the client gets is what he needs. It just doesn't mean that they know it, but they will feel it, because they will feel after the work this sense of relief. Yeah. And then after half a year, they might or might not have met their partner for life. That's not in your hand. That's not in their hand neither. That's in nobody's hand. That's only when he's ready. And if that doesn't happen, then they might come back with the same issue. And you don't need to be frustrated and think, oh my gosh, my work hasn't worked. No. Just do the same, just work with the same issues. Will not be the same constellation. Something else. The next onion layer will be revealed. It's just that this urge of your client to have a partner for life is the driving force to do the work for the family system. And the result of all this work and going all the way with this client could be that in the end, when all onion layers are peeled, remember there's nothing. There's just nothing. There's no fruit to gain. The partner for life is the fruit of the orange, but the onion is, there's nothing. The client might, after 2 years working in family constellation, is happy as a single ever after, you know, and is not looking for a partner for life anymore. This can be also an outcome. So this is what I mean when I say you don't want to achieve anything. That's not in our hand. That would be not the right position of the helper. Saida, was this question answered, or do you want to ask it?
I was going to ask, so sometimes if you do work with somebody, can something else be revealed that's not part of the constellation that you're working on? So something else happens somewhere else within the family system.
I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly. What would be that something else?
So for example, if you work with me and I bring something about me, can something happen to my sister or to my mum as a result of the work that you've done with me?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. That's exactly how it works. That's exactly how it works. It will shift the whole vibration in the family system every time you work. Every time you work, regardless on what issue, every time you do a family constellation, it will shift the energy, the frequency, the dynamics, the soul movements in your family system.
Thank you.
You just don't know in which way. That is up to the family system, not to us, not even to the client. Yeah. Eva.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I have had that experience. I was working with my family constellator and I had a question, for example, one question. After that, I thought that nothing changed in my life, but I suddenly noticed that it completely changed my mother's and my grandmother's life. They started to act themselves totally different than before. They started to feel more love to each other. It was like, wow, what kind of miracle it happened? But nothing at first I thought happened to me, but it happened to them directly, like a couple of weeks after this constellation. So that was what you mentioned.
Yeah, Exactly. And this can happen up to 6 months. Bert Helling always says the movement of the souls can go up to 6 months. So this can all, and often you are not correlating it anymore to the family constellation, you know, after 4 or 5 months. But it is a result of that, definitely. And also the good thing is, I'm not sure if that comes in my charts, but I will say it here. The right position of the help is also to be content with whatever is the outcome, right? Whatever is the outcome. Big steps, small steps, seemingly no movement. We don't know. We don't know what as long as we know we have facilitated a family constellation, the method of Bert Hellinger, and we've been all the time in the right position. It works. That's a given. But if we get the feedback, if the client feels anything, we don't know. That is probably the most challenging part of our work. It's not very rewarding in this regard, because we are also not asking our clients, and I will dwell on that later. We are also not asking our clients a week ago or a month what has shifted, if something has shifted, because we are not part of the system anymore. Yeah, so it would be an overreach, and it would be a breach of the orders of love to go back to there. Yeah. So other than a therapist who, you know, takes notes, writes down, and then the next session somebody comes and says, okay, so last time we worked on, I don't know what, depression, let's say depression. How are your depression today? What has changed? You know, this is kind of how therapy works, as far as I know, more or less. We don't do that, no. We are joining the family system the moment the client comes, and we are leaving it the moment the client leaves. That's it. Yeah. And when the client comes again, it's like a new client. It's almost like you haven't met him. Of course, you can have small talk and ask, so, you know, how's the weather in New York, if it's from New York or whatnot, you know, you know the client, yeah, but you don't ask about the last constellation. And this is also good because, good news, you don't need to memorize it. You don't need to memorize what has happened at all. It would be completely in the way of the work if you would have known what the constellation was about last time. And this is also a sign to be connected with the morphic field if you forgot about it. Pretty much the moment it's over. You wouldn't remember it anymore. Eva.
I have questions. I have read those Bert Hellinger books, and also they have those letters from the clients. They are writing like a couple of weeks or months later. So it's totally different. The client, if he or she wants, he or she can write a letter or give some kind of note. Yeah, but I'm not asking. I'm just like, if they want, it's okay. But if they are not giving any kind of notice, then it's also okay.
Absolutely, that is very good observed. Of course, you get feedbacks and reviews. If you see on my website, there are lots of reviews, but they just write it on their own. They have the need to share that, and that's great. Yeah, but you never ask, and you never go back there. So next time you see them, they're not going back there and say, okay, how, you know, how was it, and how was the next week, and how was the next month after our last meeting. Yeah, that's maybe the greatest discrepancy between therapies and family constellation, and that you don't do that. It will disturb the movement of the soul, and you're not in the right position of the helper, because the client comes with something completely different, doesn't unknowingly, because the family system sends him again. And not because the first thing has, so when the client comes again, and of course I have clients like this too, they come all over again with the same issue, and they come back not because they, that's an interesting fact actually, they come back, they think nothing changed. And you would think they would be angry with you, right? Spending all this money on that, and no, they come back happy to see you, reporting on the same issue again, yeah, expecting you to work with it again. You see what's going on here? So the family system is sending them all over again. They get happy and happy. They don't see it. They are fixated in their mind on a certain result. The family system couldn't care less. And you as a helper neither. Yeah.
Could it also be said that sometimes the person is pushing themselves to be ready, but the family system or the soul isn't ready, or does that not work?
I think that wouldn't work the other way around. I think it's always the family system that sends the client.
That tends to?
The family system is always the one who sends the client.
Okay.
The client can be oblivious about it, ignorant, naive,
Yeah.
but the family system won't.
Brilliant, thank you.
But I think I know what you mean, Saida. So you have this client, especially in one-on-one situations, not so much in workshops, but in one-on-one situations, you have these clients that come to you for a therapy. They are kind of, they have this kind of attachment. They want to talk. They want, that's fine too. Who are we to say that's not okay? They come. Something must be, You just remind yourself of the position of the helper when you work with them. But they might really they might really come to talk about their problems and need a good listener, and that's fine. Why not? That's not, as long as we don't decide to do that. So Bert Hellinger was actually, I maybe share that. Bert Hellinger was actually so strict because he didn't do much one-on-one client work. It was the workshop work. When somebody was in the ego and somebody was talking and really wanted to talk, he was shut them down. He said, "Stop! I heard enough." Like in this tone, And sometimes he didn't even allow them to talk more than one sentence. Yeah. That's totally fine, and that's totally Bert Hellinger's work, and he's famous for that and very successful. You don't have to do that. You can let them talk, but we talk about that. How long, actually? But that is possible. You can let them talk as long as you don't listen. Because the ego of a client want to, lead you somewhere. And that's not our work. So we learn how to decipher the true information that's coming from the field, from the family system, and what is the ego personality that is kind of, ranting about. And that's easy to find out. Right? And we don't want the rant going on for too long. That's for sure. But we can allow that. I mean, I don't mind. I let them, if they need to talk for 5 minutes, then let them talk for 5 minutes. Why not? Or even 10. But I never forget where I work for, right? The family system. So his wherever he takes me in his thought construct, it's just for him to release pressure, if you will. Yeah. But I don't consider it my work.
Could you say that when the person is talking, that is enabling you to connect with the family system through kind of like just being with that person?
It makes no difference to me.
Okay, thank you.
The most problem is that you are manipulated by what the client is talking about. That's the problem. And that will actually then not allow you to connect. But you don't need them to talk to connect. You can connect in an instant with the family system, right? You don't need that. And we will also go through phases of silence and all of this where we connect. Okay. So that is also the biggie, is you don't have the desire to help. That is the right position of the helper. Now, how does it even work? That's a complete contradiction, right? It might sound like a contradiction, but it's more like dichotomy, like a divine dichotomy. Both can exist together, right? You can be a helper and you can have no desire to help. Because what means helping is you want to achieve something, yeah? Let's say you need help with your homework. Let's say, whatever, math homework or literature or whatnot, yeah? You want to achieve something from your helper that they make, you know, that they make your homework better, right? But in our work, that's not what we do. We are not desiring to make the homework better. And that's what is different, yeah? We are there and open to whatever happens. And that is even no desire to help. If we would have a desire, we would be already a little bit away from connecting with the morphogenetic field. So let's put it in a concrete example. If a client comes in a workshop, sits on the hot chair next to you, and you don't get any information, I don't know, you just don't get it. And the client doesn't give you nothing and nothing, that's totally okay to say, I can't help you, please go back to your chair. You know? And that is exactly the right position of the helper, because this person in this workshop would be probably completely like shocked, yeah, sits back, and then in the course of the whole workshop, as a representative or just an observer, something will reveal that will shift the energy and the lives in his family system and maybe his own. No? And that's why if you have in the back, you don't want to achieve anything and you have no desire to help, then you're open to connect with the morphic field and be truthful. You know, staying centered in the truth. That's our credo. That's our mantra. That's what we need to provide. Yeah. We are not twisting and turning. We are not pleasers. We are not any of these. We are staying truthful. Without hurting, of course, deliberately, of course. We're not rude. Also, people thought Bertellinger was rude. But I never found him rude. He was just very, very, very strict. No fluff. That was it. Absolutely none. Okay. So, what else? As a helper, you need to practice waiting and silence. That seems to be one of the most obstacles to be a good helper, that you have the urge to talk when there is silence, that you cannot sit with your client in silence. And this is urge to do something. And then also the desire to help, of course, right? So by practicing waiting and silence, you will lesser and lesser and lesser have this desire to help or this urge to achieve something. When you practice waiting and silence, don't try to do something because you're practicing. It's like when somebody says, okay, I'm meditating today. I'm meditating every day in the morning for 20 minutes. And then you ask them, and when do you do nothing? And then they'll say, well, in the morning when I have this 20-minute meditation, I'm doing nothing. I said, but you said you're meditating. You know, of course this is something to do, right? So the really to do nothing is not to try to do nothing, it is to do nothing. That means not to meditate, not to think, not to feel, like trying hard to feel something from the client. Can I feel something? It is nothing. You know, you're sitting in silence, you're waiting for information from the field. That is a passive state of beingness. It's not a doing. You're not doing. And that can be short, that can be just a few seconds, and sometimes it is longer, right? Sometimes it can be up to minutes when this is happening. And we will do this today in an exercise. As a position of the helper, I also urge you to practice the art of not knowing. Not knowing is so fundamental. Of course, you're in the course to know everything, but once you have kind of digested it and it becomes your second nature, then you take it all, you know, it's not in your mind. You're open to everything, to perceive everything new. Yeah. You're not sitting there next to your client, to be precise, and thinking, well, I know everything and you know nothing, client. No? So now I'm sitting here to apply my knowledge. That's not the right position of the helper. The right position of the helper says, well, I'm sitting here and I know nothing. I know nothing about their family system. I know nothing about this client. Even if he's talking for 10 minutes, I still know nothing, right? Because whatever he's telling me, how do I know it's the truth? I don't know. I know nothing. We know when we see representatives moving. That is when we know. Before that, we do not know anything. Yeah. Or before we get the information of the morphogenetic field, even if we don't use representatives, we don't know anything. The right position of the helper is also ask your teachers for support, right? The teachers are behind you. The teachers are helping you. The teachers are in your morphogenetic field in the order precedence before you, right? They came before you, so they can support you. So whoever you have learned from, whoever has ever supported your work, even though you haven't never met them, even though you never met Bert Hellinger, you can ask Bert Hellinger for support. Yeah. And that is a great strength. I mean, you don't have to go to such extent, like I know of a couple in Germany who is facilitating together workshops. They sit in their two chairs, and then there is the client's chair empty, and then behind them they always place two chairs. They're empty, and they are standing there for Sophie and Bert Hellinger, you know, to support them, which is a lovely idea. I just find it a bit spooky to have these two empty chairs there, and I don't think you need to do that, to ask for support. Yeah, you see. And that is just a quick checking in, and if you will, praying, or however you want to call that, and evoke the support of your teachers, or your spiritual guides, or whoever is the one in your life, or multiple people in your life you would like to support you in this situation when you are working with a client. There is a lovely book. I had read it with great interest and joy 10 years ago. If you want to know more about the art of not knowing, read the book of Not Knowing by Peter Ralston. An Audible is available, so that's really handy. And dwell into this very interesting topic of not knowing. Okay, now we are talking about leading the client. First of all, there need to be an invitation to constellate. So you are extending, let's say in a group setting, the invitation to constellate. And then you wait who actually wants to constellate. Even though if you would, especially in small workshops, if you have 4 or 5 people there, they would probably all expect to constellate, right? Or you as a helper, as a facilitator, you think, well, they all want to constellate anyhow, so I just pick one after the other, right? That would also be a breach of the orders, right? And that would be the third order, balance, right? You have to wait till a client is ready, constellate. Otherwise, they cannot receive. It's impossible that they receive anything. So you ask who wants to constellate, and then hands go up. And then you choose somebody, and you don't need to think about who you choose because the field will choose it for you. There will be an urge to choose a certain person, and then you choose a certain person without questioning it, right? Because you are part of the morphogenetic field and you are part of the movement as well. So that is the invitation to constellate. What happens? I mean, again, I have to tell you something from a Bert Hellinger workshop. Sometimes he was sitting there and then he was just pointing, and you know, and he has all these huge groups, and he was pointing and says, "You," and he was pointing at somebody, and they were like this, and then they need to come, and then they constellate. And of course, he can do everything, and it was all great. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't trust. Like normally, I wouldn't trust my connection to the field being so strong that I can kind of do that. I prefer to ask them if they want to constellate. Rest assured, after a while, everybody wants to constellate because most people just don't want to be the first ones. That's totally okay. Or what happened if nobody wants to constellate? What would you do? Just make it this a question. What would you do? Let's say you have a group of 5. It's your first workshop. You have a group of 5, and you ask who wants to constellate, and everybody's looking down. What would you do? Any ideas?
I'd probably ask them why they came.
Okay. That's a bit confrontational, but okay.
Oh, well, yeah, maybe it is. Or just sit in silence and just wait.
Yeah, it's always good. Sit in silence. Yep. You can also do an exercise with everyone. So everybody has to get up to break the ice. You could read out of a Bert Hellinger book to break the ice. You can make a guided meditation with them, also breaking the ice. You can make an exercise. You can put music on and get up and just dance, or do a bit, whatever, a couple of yoga poses or breathing exercises. Yeah, anything that is engaging them to become a bit active and feeling more confident in this new situation of the, yeah. And of course, if worst comes to worst, which I have never seen with anybody, but you know, nobody knows her. If nobody gets, you can get up and say, okay, if you don't want a constellation, then the workshop is over. Of course, you could do that, right? Of course, because that's probably all they needed. Maybe you had a group of people who needed this wake up, whatever call. So totally up to you. Now we come to the client situation. So has everybody, every one of you been in an in-person workshop in family constellation already? Yeah, Saida, have you?
I've like a very small one, not a full constellation, but
Yeah.
I've actually seen a couple of videos of constellations being recorded in person.
Okay. So then you have noticed that there is an empty chair, right? That is normally how it is, yeah. So there is an empty chair either here or there, and that's where the client sits when they are ready to constellate, next to the facilitator. Huh? So are these chair, or is this client sitting on the left or on the right side of the facilitator? Eva?
I would say left.
Eva, say it again.
I would say the left.
Did you say left?
Yeah, left.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well,
Left.
I remember sitting on the right.
Okay. Now Judy says right. Anybody else? We take more votes. for left or right?
In the video that I saw, it was on the right.
On the right. And Eva, what's your vote?
Also on the right.
Okay. Very good. All right. Is there a particular reason why you think it, or just because you observed it? Do you think it's
I know,
random?
no, that's where the facilitator put the chair. That's all I know. So I had to sit to the right of the facilitator, and we were watching the constellation. Yeah.
I have to say, Navjyoti, congratulations. You've been to a good facilitator. Because yes, the appropriate seat is on the right. So there's a couple of stories I can tell you here with this. It is really a constant struggle for some to figure that out. So why the right? The right side is also, remember the orders of love. The right side is where the male is, the left side is where the female is, then the children are on the left of the mother. That is because the right side is, I'm just saying that without any prejudgment, is the important one, the one who secures the system. Yeah. So who comes first is always on the right. Yeah. In a family constellation, and forget about this man, woman, who comes first, who's securing the system, is on the right side. And you see that in orders. You see that that's what the family system wants them to be. Otherwise, it is in disorder. Yeah. So your client, guess what? He's the important person, not you, as a helper. Yeah. So the client is the one who's leading the show, although we know the family system because the client is just a messenger sent from the family system. So it's representing the family system. So in fact, the client is not sitting right to you. The family system is sitting right from. Yeah. What would be happening if you are sitting on the other side? If your client would be on the left side, what's happening now? Just spontaneously, what do you think? Systemic.
You're disrupting the order of precedence.
You do? Very good, Navjyoti. And how would you feel that? What would happen? What do you think? What do you think?
I think that then it's hard. You don't want to achieve nothing because you have the urge to help. Maybe that's the reason.
Very good. Very good, Eva. Exactly. You would be in the position that you want to do something. Yeah. And thus completely falling out of the role of the helper. The right role of the helper. Yeah. So I like to share two stories with you that there are different stories that will help you to memorize that in case you will ever mix it up or ask yourself, was it the right or the left? So the one is if you have seen Another Self on Netflix. Anybody? Yes, yes. So I saw it too, of course, as soon as I heard about it. And to my surprise, and I think it's a good, for what Netflix does normally, it's a good series. However, if you remember the guy facilitating, I forgot his name, he was sitting on the right. Yeah. So I was actually making a little quiz on our Facebook group with the trainees and asked them, they all saw Another Self, we were all watching it then, and when it came out, and then I asked them, what was wrong in the picture in this whatever episode 2 it was or something, right? And I wanted to hear that the facilitator was sitting on the right. Now
Yeah,
in
I
this,
remember it was with Reem's group, right? Because I remember
yeah,
it
and
was
Reem
like
won it. Yeah, Reem won it. That he was
because we were watching the series together.
yeah, exactly. So
I just question now, remembering that, yes, I have before COVID, of course, I have attended a couple of in-person workshops.
Yeah.
So one of them, yes, the facilitator had me sitting on the right of her, but then in the other workshop, the facilitator was facing me. She was sitting opposite to me.
Oh, interesting. So, Heba, you have been to really interesting workshops there. So, we talk about that. That's a good point. So, let's come back to this another self situation. I was asked, yeah, why would because it was quite thoroughly researched and it was following Bert Hellinger's mainly, you know, Bert Hellinger's teaching. So everybody was wondering why was he sitting on the right? And I tell you why, because the art director told him to sit there because it looked better in the picture. That's all, right? And you know, it's a movie, it's a film. They are filmmakers. They don't want to be correct, yeah. But that was the only reason I could see why they would place the facilitator on the wrong side. And then I have another story, which is just recently have been reported to me, that somebody I know, he came to a few in-person workshops with me, but not my trainee. He had his first workshop conducted as a facilitator a few months ago, and one of my trainees went to this, and he was actually, it was a group of 4 people. Of course, it was his first workshop. I don't know where he's trained. He didn't train with me, and he actually was sitting. Guess what? To the right, not to the left of the client. And she asked him, because, you know, he is trained, she asked him why he's not sitting on the left side. And then he said to her, well, I tried, but it doesn't feel right. Or it didn't feel right to me. Now, this is very interesting. You know why it didn't feel right for him? And he was correct. It wasn't right for him. You know why? Because this workshop wasn't about the client. It was about him. It was all about him. Because it was his first workshop. And it was all about him. Can I do it? How do I do it? It was all about him. It was not about the client. So this is why he felt better sitting on the right. And he was correct. Yeah. Now, of course, he has not obeyed the orders of love. He wasn't in the right position of the helper. That's correct. But you don't need to be worried about the people who show to the workshop, because they are also guided by the fear to come to a workshop where it's all about the facilitator. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. They get what they wanted, even if they are not consciously aware of that. So with this, all these stories, yes, Saida.
So how do you, where does the client sit in a Zoom setting?
Well, there's no sitting, of course, in the Zoom.
Okay.
Everybody sits for themselves. But if you are imagining your client, you're imagining at your left side. So everything, so I'm not talking too much about online meetings. Oops, everybody left us now. I don't know, everybody's taking off. What happened?
Maybe this is the time to take the break.
Yeah, maybe it is. Okay, just go over this briefly. So, what did you just say, Saida?
About online. Where does the client sit online?
So just last word before the break. I'm not talking much about online facilitating family constellation. That is not the classical way to do, and you really need a lot of experience to do that, because you need to visualize everything that you know from in-person workshops in this virtual realm. You need to see that. You are seeing the people in the room. You're seeing their movements. Otherwise, you can't work online, yeah, in a group setting. So this is why we focus on in-person workshops. And that's also what I urge you to do, of course, right? And then over time, and I'm talking about lots of years, that you kind of have this 3D vision of every position of every representative and everything with no effort. Yeah, then you can do the work online for sure. Okay, so that's why we don't want to go there in greater detail. Yeah. Okay, cool. So when did I actually, let me just see when I plan the break. We are not there really. It doesn't matter. We take
Sorry,
the break
just a
now.
small question. So
Yeah,
you
Heba?
were saying that, yeah, so what about the online workshops where you work with the figurines?
That's the one-on-one session. That's not a
Yeah.
workshop. Yeah.
Yeah,
And there
so
this is kind of a visual help for me and the client to see you actually see the people, which are figurines in the room, right?
so you would not also advise that unless one has like also years of experience, or is it
Say it
easier
again.
than the online workshop? So you
Say it
would not
again.
advise that also?
No. Yeah. I do advise you to. We talk about that in module 5, but I do advise you to do one-on-one sessions. Yeah, and you can definitely do them online. Yeah, if you're confident with, because you have the visual there. Yeah.
So it's more feasible than the online workshop for like new facilitators.
Yeah, you can't do that online. No, not with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good. Let me just finish the slide before we go in our break. So I don't know. Connecting with the field, that is, as we talked about, you're sitting next to the client on the left side, the client is on the right. And yes, we talked about that silence is the best to connect with the field. It can be instantaneously the connection, or it can take a few moments or even minutes. That doesn't matter. It's not the quality of your work, you know? That has nothing to do with the quality of your work. It is just as it is. Some connections are easier and others are taking longer. You stay empty and collected. That's words Bert Hellinger is using. Yeah. And then you feel, like Eva has just reported, feel what they feel actually. So you can feel a pain. And that's very often that you feel the heart racing, or you feel a stomach, like stomach turmoil, or you feel sadness or anything like that, of course. And that's the information from the field. Yeah. And then we talked about that already. So I'm shortcut that here. To let them talk or not talk, that is the question here. Of course, it is free quoted after Shakespeare. So I say, yes, let them talk a little bit, but not too long. But Henrik said, don't let them talk. Yeah, your decision, whatever you feel comfortable with. But however, whatever you decide, do not buy into what they are saying. That's not what you're listening to. You're listening to the connection to the field and the information that comes from. Having said that, that doesn't mean that the field is not talking through the client. That is often the case. Some information comes from the client that are resonating, and most of them don't. Yeah. And the ones that are resonating with you, yes, you take them as an information of the field. Yeah. But most of the talks that you hear from clients is basically an ego running around with loose rein over the meadow. Okay. So, all right, let's see. Is this something I want to finish? Now we do that after the break. So 10 minutes. I see you in 10 minutes. So we are at the topic leading the client, and of course, you ask your client question if you're not sitting in silence and resonating and don't want to talk with the client at all. You would ask questions. And that is also a way to lead the lead the client. So you don't let you be led by what the client is just talking about. You would ask questions. So you would say, so typically you start with saying, what is it about? What is your issue? What do you want to look at? Yeah, that would be typical questions. And then they would say something, and then you think, now they're going astray somewhere. And then you would say, okay, what is the most important issue here, right? Like, where do you want to focus on? Or, you're coming back to questions, but you definitely don't want to use suggestive questions, right? Like a suggestive question would be something like, isn't it so that you have a problem with your mother? That's not a question. That's a suggestive question. That is because you are comfortable to lead an interrupted movement towards the mother, and you want your client to fall into that, right? So that we avoid that at all costs, right? The questions are very short, very precise, very sanitized, actually, and that's it. And that's it. So the rest of talking can do the client or nobody at best. You are neither an authority nor a friend. Oh, excuse me for a second. I'll be right back. Just 1 second. I forgot something. Hang on. So when I say you are neither an authority nor an authority, your video is also off. Just letting you know, in case you haven't noticed. Would be nice to see your face, if you can, and you're not in a public hospital, like Heva. Okay. So she's might not back yet. So you're neither an authority nor a friend to your client. Yeah. So what does that mean? You're not a friend is clear, right? Even if it's your friend, in the moment, it's a client and not a friend. So you have no relationship there with the client. There is no, that would be, of course, a disrespect of the orders of love, yeah, that you're not in the position of the helper and you cannot lead the client correctly, yeah. So even if you work with friends, and that's the hardest thing to do, by the way, if you work with friends, you are not a friend when you're sitting there. And then you are also not an authority. You're not like a teacher there. You're not know things better. You're not there to, how can I say, you're not there to tell them what to do, tell them what to think, that nothing of that, right? Even if you're strict and you tell them, say this or don't say this, you don't do that as an authority. You do that as the helper, right? Because it's about their family system. So if there is an authority, then it's the family system. That would be the only authority you would, if you will, allow there to be. What are we doing with difficult clients? So there's a really good trick. You imagine them as a 4-year-old that's throwing a tantrum. So let's say you have a 30-year-old woman there, quite robust, and she becomes really difficult. She wants to enter in a relationship with you. Of course, we already know what that means. If a client is dismissive towards the teacher, father issue. However, that is not then a concern because you're not really done with the initial talk or whatever you want to talk to her about. So you just imagine her, instead of getting worked up and feeling worried, you just imagine her as a 4-year-old girl that's throwing a tantrum in the shop because she doesn't get a lolly. Yeah, that really helps. And then you know, and then everything comes back to order again. If you have a feeling of resistance in the client, yeah, then think of your own expectations. So there might be resistance in the client, but it might not towards you, right? You might representing a family member. You might mistaking it. Maybe there is no resistance in the client and you just see that. So think of your own expectations. Why would you expect them not to act like they do right now? What is wrong with it? Why cannot they not do it? Yeah? Understand? You don't need to work hard to cut through the resistance if you feel them. That's okay. You can be there. You just do your work. You know? That's not an issue. And it will all ease when you have called in representatives. So the best way is when you think, okay, I draw my, so I go back to the right position of the helper, having no expectations, and then the best way is to say, okay, that's enough, we just start with the constellation. And then you ask representative to come up. Dealing with expectations of the client is different, of course, especially if they have done many family constellations before. So the ones who have not done any family constellations before are easy. They have no expectations. They might have seen another self. That might be an expectation that they are called in, that they can actually constellate. But once they are client and they are sitting next to you, that has already been met, this expectation. No, now there will be not from new clients. There will be not much of an expectation there, but you might have a client who comes to every workshop, has probably done 2,000 hours of family constellation, yeah, and is full of expectations, yeah. So how you would deal with them is you would look at them as if they have never done a family constellation before. You just imagine this client is here for the first time. You have never done a constellation with them. At best, you actually don't remember them. But if it's a really reoccurring client, you might know. They always come with the same issue. They always want to find the partner for life. It hasn't happened in the last 10 years. But however, they are back here, right? That's fine. That's totally okay. They can do that, yeah. But you look at them as if they come for the first time. That's the easiest way to deal with this expectation. You can also change the position of the client if you find that you are not able to lead them. And now we talk about this sitting opposite that Heber mentioned in a workshop. That's very odd. I have never heard that before. So the normal setting of a group, as we talk about that later on, is to have them in a circle. That's a group session in a circle. And the facilitator is part of the circle and the empty chair as well. So the empty chair is to the right of the facilitator and they are all part of the circle. And even Bert Hellinger has worked like this even with 500 people in the room. Yeah, they can either create multiple circles, so one circle after the other, right, in rings, if you will, or he had a circle or a half circle on the stage and an auditorium that was seated. Yeah, but to have somebody sitting opposite, so where are the other workshop participants then? They are kind of excluded, right? They're kind of not there. That's typical for a one-on-one session that you can sit your client, of course, opposite of you.
If I can just add a little bit to make it clear. So she usually would sit with the with the client in a separate room, where they would sit opposite each other and ask what they want to constellate for. And then they go out to the main room and everyone is seated in a circle, but then the client would just sit anywhere in the circle and she remained standing.
So are you saying that she had a separate room?
Yes, yeah.
So she had a one-on-one meeting with the client first.
Yes.
And then they went over into the room and they were not talking, so the representatives didn't know what they are constellating.
Yes, yeah. She would just ask her to choose someone or to present certain people, and then they would stand up and then she would present them. And I would sit like just anywhere in the circle.
Okay, well that's okay, of course. I was really wondering about that. So that's okay, of course, because it was a one-on-one situation where they sit opposite of each other, right? And you can do that in one-on-one situations. That's okay. It's often helpful because you want to look at them. Often you have a desk. If you work with figurine, you have a desk in between you. And if it's uncomfortable and too confrontational, you will feel that, or your client will feel that, and you can just set your chair a little bit off. You know, you don't need to be like opposite. You can just put it a little bit off. Just a little bit shift, so you're not kind of feeling. Just if you feel confrontation, I'm very comfortable with work one-on-one sessions opposite, but I see clients that they are shifting the chair around, so they are sitting slightly off. Yeah, that's fine. So yes, have in a one-on-one situation, yes, you can do that, but in a circle, when we are talking about a workshop situation, then definitely to the right. Of course, if you don't use figurines, I'm just talking out loud. If you have a one-on-one situation and you're not using figurines, of course the client is best sitting right to you. Yeah. If you do something like a guided meditation, or if you do like Bertellinger calls it a spiritual constellation, which I call an internal constellation, where you don't use objects. We talk about that in module 5. Then yeah, the right side would be probably the best if it suits your room, the right best position. No. So what are we doing with absent clients? Is there such a thing? Yeah. How do we lead a client that's absent? Yeah. Yes, you can work with absent client. I have done that repeatedly in a workshop setting. You would leave the right chair empty, and you would and you would say the client is absent because they have reasons to do the good reasons to not be here, and ask us to constellate this and this issue. Yeah, and then you can do that. So you can have absent clients. However, I would use it sparingly. There must be a really good reason, because normally they need to make the effort to come. Yeah, that's part of the process. That's also why you don't want anybody else to pay for somebody else to come. They need to make the effort to book, to look up the event, to look up how they get there, find accommodation, make their traveling arrangements, and pay, and receive their booking confirmation, and they need to go on the way physically, right? That's really important. I have never, ever seen, and that happens, of course, that somebody brings a friend to family constellation, that somebody sends vouchers for online workshops to somebody. They think they would enjoy it, or they think they should do it. They are completely disinterested. They are in the workshop and they are really not following. But I have never seen it the other way around. So they have to make the effort and book. Saida?
So I know we've had discussions about kind of like mental health issues a few times. So if someone has a diagnosis and they don't have the agency to make a decision about coming, can you still constellate for them?
They would have a guardian or somebody, right?
Yes, yeah.
I think
So
they
that
can do
person
that.
can do it.
I would
Yeah,
say so.
okay.
I mean, I've never
Okay.
seen this case. It would be interesting to see if that would be in order. But I can imagine that that would be okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, for example, if someone wants to constellate on behalf of, I don't know, a sibling or
No, that
a
doesn't
niece
work.
or a
That doesn't work.
ah,
That is not in order. You can only constellate for your own children. Yeah. But as a therapist or as a guardian, as a legal guardian or a therapist, you can constellate for your clients. So that's actually
Okay.
called supervision. And that's actually how Bert Hellinger started. His whole family constellation journey started with supervision workshops for therapists.
Can you say a bit more about that?
So you are working with clients, yeah? And your client has a problem. Let's say the client has suicidal thoughts, and you work with them, and then at one stage you are suggesting to your client, no, and you feel like you can't help. Yeah, you feel there is no movement. Then you would come to one of the earliest of Bert Hellinger's workshops. There were only therapists, and he would ask who wants to introduce, and there are also books about it's in his earliest books there, all the constellations are from supervision. He would ask, so who wants to constellate a case of their practice? Yeah, because remember, the helper is part of the family system. And if you have an ongoing client, a regular client, who are you constantly helping, yeah, you are also constantly part of their family system. So that's totally okay to do that. But you cannot, as a family member, you cannot constellate for another family member. You always constellate for yourself. The only exemption is a parent for their children. So if you have if you have somebody who is disabled and cannot make decisions for themselves, their father or mother would be the right person to do that.
Fantastic.
And if they don't have a mother and father or father anymore, then maybe the guardian who is a substitute of that position. Right?
Very helpful.
However, I haven't had this case, so it would be good to see if that would be still in the right order. I would assume so, but you never know until you see, right? Okay. Experimenting during the constellation is totally fine as long as you know why you do it, what for you do it, and what is your goal with it. Yeah. So remember, when we use the words, yes, please, thank you, it's totally okay to start to find out what relationship you're looking at with suggesting a word. And if the representative is happy to say that, then you know, we have, let's say, mother-child relationship. And when the representative is not happy to say that, then you know, we maybe have a victim-perpetrator relationship. So that's what I call experimenting. So you are allowed to experiment as long as you know what you're looking for, as long as you know why you do that. Not fishing in the dark. That's not okay. Yeah, you're not leading the client anymore when you're just fishing in the dark. That means you are in the dark. You are never in the dark. You have only options. Yeah, either or. And then you want to find out which one it is. And that's experimenting. That's fine. So now we come to our exercise. Heba, are you okay to do the exercise? Because
How
we
long
need
would
you.
the exercise take?
10 minutes or 5 in your case.
Oh, okay, all right. I can do it in the car, right? I'll just park somewhere and just do it in the car.
That would be fantastic.
Okay.
Okay.
Just give me a couple of minutes just to find a spot where I can park.
Yes, but you can hear us, eh?
Yes, yeah.
Cool. So I tell you what the exercise is about. You are two in a group. One is a helper and the other is representing a client. And you can represent yourself, you know. You yourself, you are the client. You know, you don't need to fake it, if you will. Yeah. Then you are first of all practice waiting in silence for at least 1 minute. And I urge you to put a timer on, because a minute can be long when it's silent. Yeah. If you have your phone here, use the timer function. Set in a timer, 1 minute, 2 is better. And the objective of this is that you feel comfortable sitting with a client who may have expectations towards you, yeah, to not do anything. You are not sitting in silence and waiting as something to do with the goal to connect to the field. That would be doing something. Instead, you're just sitting, waiting and silent. You are waiting for information of the field. That is not doing. But you are not trying to analyze the client for information. Yeah. It is not the part where you observe the client and look at hints from the client. That's not waiting and silent. Waiting and silent is not even looking at the client. Yeah. But it also means not closing the eyes. Yeah. You're not closing the eyes. Your eyes are open. You can look. If your client would be on your right side, you look ahead. If now we are in a virtual room, you're not looking in the eyes of your partner in this exercise. You're looking at the wall next to your partner, not away, but not directly into their eyes. And you want to relax into it and really feel comfortable about it, and don't feel this weird sensation of, oh, this is strange, I need to do something needs to happen. Yeah, that's the objective of the exercise. Then the second part is, after you have mastered this 1 or even 2 minutes of silence, you ask the client about the issue. Now the right words here not the right, but one of the really short ways to do that is to ask, what is it about? And as before, when we talked about the sentences of resolution, use these words literally, because they are very powerful. You don't need to invent your own. Yeah. I mean, if you have another mother tongue, of course, you have to translate it. But let's say you speak English with your client. Yeah. You ask, what is it about? You don't ask, okay, you came here with an issue. Do you want to explain? You're not starting to talk. It's the shortest way to lead the client. Yeah. And you're not even mentioning an issue, because an issue is already narrowing everything down, right? You certainly don't say problem. We don't deal with problems. Yeah. We don't deal with expectation. Not asking, so what is your expectation? We're asking, what is it about? We are totally open what this is. It is. We don't know it yet. But remember, you're talking to the family system, not to the client when you do this. We are allowing the field will understand you. The client might not, but the field will understand you, and it will talk through the client. Yeah. When you're using this set kind of words. So what is it about? Then you lead the conversation, and you decide how much you want the client to talk or not to talk. And this is an exercise. So use your time and maybe interrupt the client and say, this is enough. Thank you. No, don't say thank you. I never do that. This is enough. I've heard enough. Let's start working. Words like this. Yeah? Because you need to get used to it to lead in a way like this. Then you think about, how would you start the constellation? So now you have connected with the family system of your client. You have asked the client what it is about. The client has spoken to an extent that you find there's enough information for you, right? And now you have to stop him talking and start working, right? Now, starting working means you need to choose who are the representatives you need? Yeah. And that's what I want you to find out for yourself. How would you start the constellation? What would be the next step? Yeah. However, I don't want you to facilitate a constellation. You're not facilitating. You just decide how you want to start. And then you share it with me, with the group, when we are coming back together. So once you have decided, you don't even need to tell. You can tell the client in this exercise. For example, after waiting in silence, you ask the client about the issue. You ask, what is it about? Then the client, let's say, talks for a minute. Then you say, that's enough. And then you say to your client, okay, choose a representative for your mother, father, and grandmother, maternal grandmother. Yeah, that's it. And then the exercise is over. You're not going into facilitating anything. Yeah, and then you swap. We give 5 minutes, 5 minutes to each. Then we swap, and then you do it in swap roles. Same thing. Is that all clear? Heba, is it all clear? Do you have time now to put on your video? Can you put on your video? Wonderful. Hey, good job. Okay, so I stop sharing and do the breakout rooms. Has anybody been with everybody already in the breakout room? Yeah? Okay, then we can do that automatically. Heba, did you miss anybody? You're muted. Heba, you're muted.
I can't remember.
Okay, let's decide the computer then.
And Maya, will you tell us when to swap?
Yes, I will. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay,
Yeah,
very good. So let's share. Who wants to start?
yeah, I will start.
Yep.
So first, I was the client, and Yvonne was the facilitator, and she asked me what is it about. Honestly, I couldn't really think of anything, so I just like the only thing that popped up is the feeling stuck in the current situation with my ex, where we are trying to move forward, but we cannot either like break it off completely or even take a step to get back together. And she said that she would choose one for me and one for my husband, and then from my mother's side, like my mother and grandmother, which I found a little bit interesting, the choice of the people that she would pick up on the constellation. I'm waiting for her to explain that her choice. And then we swap. Yeah, because I expected that you might put the other woman and his children or something like that. But then she said, no, I would just pick up your mom and your grandmother and your partner. But then, and we swapped, and during the first minute when we were just trying to tune in, I could feel that she was restless, and she had like a lot of things going on that she cannot really focus on one thing. And I don't know why her father kept popping up in my mind, that she feels like she misses him or something like that, or if he was there just to tell her what to do or to guide her. And then when I asked her what is it about, and she was like, that a lot is going on and that she's doing a lot of stuff and she doesn't know when to take a rest and when to go on and keep doing things. I had to ask her a couple of questions just to make sure that I understood the issue, that what she's talking about. So I asked her if she's feeling overwhelmed, and she said that she does. And I asked her when this started, if it's been going on for a while or it just started like recently, and she could say that more or less during the last couple of months. And then she said that she started multiple projects at the same time, and she feels like she's juggling between things, and she doesn't know how to relax. So for me, for her constellation, I would start with her and her feeling of overwhelmed. And
Very
then from there, I'll see if she will need, like, I sense that she needed some support. So
Mhm.
then I might start exploring if she needs the support to face this, the situation that she's going through right now. But I would start with 2 people for a beginning.
Very good. Would you also consider Heba to have a third person there, her father?
Yes, yeah.
Because this is information from the field. When you sit, that's exactly why you sit in silence and wait, because you get the information. And although it doesn't make sense, that's actually good. Actually, the best information don't make sense. Why the father? Then you would definitely also pick a representative for the father. And the issue, of course, the issue, the restlessness. Yes, yes. Very good. Very good. So that was a good, also for you, I suppose, a very good exercise to feel how you actually connect. Right?
Yeah.
Very good. Because without experiencing it for yourself, you never know.
Yes, to understand how the facilitator gets the information from the field.
Exactly. Okay, very good. Thank you, Heba. And Eva, would you like to share?
Like just looking on the side of Heba, I started to feel the pressure on my breast. It was like I can't even breathe. Normally, it was like so small breast. It was like so heavy for me. My head was like so heavy. Also, I felt so tired and exhausted, and also a little bit like fed up with that situation. And then I started to feel pain in the lower part of abdomen where the uterus and all the things are. So, and that made me some kind also of stress. At the beginning, I started to feel pain, and then the urge, the stress, some kind of nervosity came in myself. And that was the reason when I asked for Heba, what was about it, and she said yes, about her ex-boyfriend and her, but I had the feeling that I was something missing, and I asked her, how do you think, is there something missing, just like not like about them, but still about the information? Do you want to tell me something more? I had that urge that something is missing, and I asked for them also, do you have children, both of you together? She said that no. Then I asked, but did you had maybe? She said that not, but I had the feeling that yes, I must put her boyfriend or ex, and the husband, ex-husband, and it's something about the mother line. It was like some kind of, as you mentioned, like you don't make any sense why it came for me, but I had that kind of feeling.
And that's really good. That's really good that you follow that, yeah? Just because it doesn't make sense or it's unexpected also for your client doesn't mean that you don't do that. And you can't do anything wrong. If it's this representative for the maternal line has nothing to do with it, so what? Nothing is lost. It's just another person in the constellation that has no impact. That's not soiling the constellation, if you will, right? So it's always better to follow the information that you get and then check if they were of any importance or not. Yeah, very good. And when you were the client,
and then when we changed, I really couldn't focus on that moment. Before that, I could, but at that moment, I couldn't focus.
No?
It was like tons of things in my head, and she was very fast asking, "What is about it?" And I was like, "Whoa! I just can't even focus what I need to do at the beginning." But then, yes, I started to explain that feeling that I can't find a way or a place where I can rest. Before that, I knew that I need to go for a hike or take a good food or something, and I feel, oh, it's all again good for me, and I'm going and doing things, but no, I don't know. And when she was talking to you about my father, I started to feel like some very strange feeling in my stomach. It started even do some spasms, like when she was talking about that. So maybe some kind of issue about that.
Yeah, most certainly. So very good. And how, tell me, Eva, how did you feel about this period of silence when you were the facilitator, the helper?
Oh, totally good. It was, I was like, just felt very good. Yeah, about it.
Okay, very good. Right, thank you for sharing. Saida and Navjoti, who wants to go first?
I don't mind. I'll go first. So I found this exercise really difficult, and and I'm just going to say it. And I think Navjoti's just got so much going on in her life that for me it was just really difficult to, because when I was the helper and Navjoti was representing, originally there was her and one of her children in the space, and I was like, who am I looking at? And it was really difficult. And then I think the child kind of went off, and then I could see there was somebody else in the space, and she was moving, and I couldn't hear. So in the silence, there was just a lot going on. And when it ended and I asked her what it was about, it was difficult for me to hear the words. So I was thinking, what would I do in this situation? And I think I would say to that person that we can't do it now, and we need to rearrange it, because it was really hard for me to be present with her. And I know I hope this isn't difficult for her to hear, but I think it's important to share, because if you can't be with that person, how can you access anything? How can you do this work?
That's a very good observation, Saida. I'm glad that you are so honest, because that's exactly what I say when you as a helper know when you can't help.
Yeah.
That's exactly
having
like
said
this.
all of that, when I did kind of get and here's the thing, like, is this really the thing that she wanted to bring or not? I don't know, but she spoke about a spiritual practice. So I was thinking, what would I put into a constellation? I would have put spiritual practice and Navjoti and maybe expectations, and then just see what comes up from there.
Yeah, that's a good start. Expectations or distractions. Yeah, whatever was what you have experienced in this period of silence.
And then when we swapped, for me, I mean, again, similarly, like I couldn't connect in that way. Like whilst there was no words shared, there was actually a lot of noise from the background. And so I had something that I wanted to bring and I couldn't bring it. And I just had a lot of sympathy, or I just wanted to come in and help Navjoti. And I think actually from a client perspective,
go and nanny for Navjoti.
You know, yeah. It was a really interesting thing for me, just sitting in.
Did we lose her?
It was really challenging.
Oh yeah. Okay. This is really good. This is a really good example, Saida. What can actually happen in real life, and that you know where your boundaries are, and that you don't shy away from, saying, okay, this is not the time. Because of course the client, I mean, this was an exercise. Of course, now Jody is not coming to a workshop with a baby, but if you have a client sitting there on the chair in the workshop, being so restless, and you have exactly the same, Saida, you cannot, you would ask them to go back to their chair, calm down, and whatever, or go out, go on a walk, come back. That in itself is already a movement of the soul. That's already in itself helping. That the client is realizing, I cannot just come like this. Bert Hellinger has a really good word for it. It's collected, to be collected. So the helper has to be collected, but the client as well. Yeah. Otherwise, this work is not possible. And the representative, so everybody who's involved, they have to be collected. I don't know whether it's a proper English word, probably translated from German, but
I think you mean connected. I noticed that in your slides. I think you mean connected, not collected.
not connected, collected. He says collected, yeah. So it's a translation from German to English. And as always, it doesn't always make sense, but you know, that's what we get.
Okay, all right. And what's the German word?
Same, collected.
Okay,
in
so-
German, no, hang on, it's not the same. It's in German, it is, yeah, just with a K. So the difference is collected is with a C in English, and in German it's
Yeah.
with a K.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah.
I'll look it up. Thank you.
So when you collect things, you are kind of gathering things together to have it in. Let's say you have 10 apples lying around on the ground, yeah, in one basket, and you're collecting the apples and put them in the basket. And now you have all apples in the basket together. That's what he means is collected. So all the
That's very helpful.
fractions, thoughts, emotions, or whatever, bring them all together in one basket. That's what he means with collect. Okay, good. Navjoti, how about you?
Yeah, so the first one, when you say there was the helper, yeah, it was mute. I was not getting anything. So yeah, so we waited the whole 2 minutes, and then yeah, I can just describe it as mute. There was nothing I was able to receive, and then when she asked what is it about, I expressed it, and then I was not audible, and then when I did become audible, she said, I think I've got it, so I didn't have to repeat it, and that was it. And then when I became the helper, then I was I was able to immediately suddenly have this strong sensation of the arms opening up. No, first the legs opening up, and then the arms opening up, and then opening up involuntarily, so strongly, as if you really want to take someone in, or I don't know, being receptive. And then my attention went back to say this face, and that sensation slipped away immediately, and I felt, okay, is that it was just my guess that, okay, is this what the field is bringing up, that there's an opening and then there's a sudden shutting down, and that's where there seems to be a conflict. So then when I asked her what is it about, she said, on one hand, I want to talk about an entanglement with my neighbor, but on the other hand, I want to help you. So when she said that, in the helper role, I had to kind of step back. I said, okay, doesn't sound, I don't know, balanced. The client is saying, I want to help you. So then I did not say anything after that, and we let it go.
So how would you start a constellation when that would be a client and the client would say to you, that's interesting, I want to help you.
Yeah, I waited for some time to pass, and I thought I would then say thank you, and I would ask, so what's going on with you and your neighbor? But she said thank you and she left. So, but that's what I would have done. I would have then constellated with the neighbor and her. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Well, of
interesting,
course,
because I didn't get an opportunity to find out. But say that if you could confirm for me the sensation that I was getting about the opening and shutting.
So what was it, Saida?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was that I wanted to bring something, but I didn't think I could because of all the what I was sensing from the space that Navjoti was in. And it's interesting because actually, if she tried to constellate, I think as the client, I would have said, this is not working for me. You know.
So did you actually
even though I
said,
had some.
yeah, did you actually said to her, I want to help you as a client?
I did say, yeah.
Yeah, she did.
Then we didn't say anything. We
Yeah,
just sat and
then yeah.
So of course, now if you think about the orders of love, yeah, and you would have a client, let's say this is a client, this is a Navjyoti's facilitator, this is a client sitting next to her, and she asks, what is it about? And then the client says, to your surprise, I want to help you. So what is going on there? Whom would you put up there?
What
You would put up
in
the
my
father.
perception, yeah.
The father.
Yeah.
That is the person
Yeah,
I
it
talked
did.
about. You know?
Yeah, it
It's
did
interesting.
occur to me that the giving gesture is so strong in the client that the client, even in the role of a client, wants to help the helper. So yeah,
that is like a child wants to be in the shoes of the adult, right? So in this case, you definitely need the father. Sorry, yeah, Saida.
I think there is something there, but I'll say if this wasn't an exercise and if this was me going to a facilitator, I wouldn't have said that. I'd have just said this isn't working and I'd have found another facilitator. I think I wanted to draw attention to it because it was so challenging for me to be in this space. And in my head, I was just thinking, if Navjoti was in a space by herself, what would that have brought up?
Okay, now rewind. I mean, we don't have much time. We have to go to the charts, but last word on that, and that's a really good exercise, especially for you, Saida, to acknowledge what is. Yeah. You have to acknowledge that you've been, let's say in this exercise, in this group, in this situation, Navjoti is in her situation, yeah? And that is what is. That is what is. That is not because you are in the wrong, at the wrong time, in the wrong place. That is because you are in the right time, in the right place. So this always shows something. There's no such thing as coincidence. That always shows something, aspects everyone can work on, just by not looking at the other, by looking at yourself. That's the learn lesson here, right? So any kind of resistance, any kind of this is important. It's important for your healing process. To see that, which is the most difficult thing. Okay, one more.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So then in terms of like how do you show up as a facilitator? Like if there is stuff going on, do you just let that happen?
Yeah. No,
and
there's no stuff as a facilitator. You leave that all behind. You leave that all. There is no stuff. When you're facilitating, there is no stuff. When there would be stuff, you couldn't help. It's impossible. And your stuff is because you are not.
My role as a facilitator.
As a facilitator, you have no stuff of your own.
Okay.
You don't, because you are not in the space. You are not in the space. You are on another level of existence, if you will. You are at a level where you are empty and collected. Yeah.
Okay.
So your stuff can be there the minute before the client sits on the chair. Your stuff can be there the minute the constellation is over, but not in between. There is no stuff. And we will talk about that, about you know, this spaces where we find those blind spots and how we deal with that. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. I think there was for everybody a real good learn experience here. And let's continue with the screen. Okay, so leading the group. Now we're talking about the group. And I go quickly, we have 15 minutes left. I go quickly, you can all recap that in the video, right? So we are not making too many questions and answers now. I just, you know, present what I have here for you. So leading the group CIA is the abbreviation. Why is that? I want to introduce to a pack, and I'm thinking of a pack of dogs, because you might know or not know it. I'm a big dog lover. I have 5 on my own, and I'm rescuing dogs as well. And I have learned a lot about leading groups from the dogs. This is why, so you can memorize it better, I want to introduce you to the pack leader. You are the pack leader when you lead a group, and the group is a pack. Yeah. And what do pack leaders have? I'm talking about dogs here. They have the trust of the pack to do the right decision. That's because they are the leader of the pack. That means they are confident, not arrogant. Yeah. The oversight, they have the oversight to step in when the pack needs order. That means they are assertive, not aggressive or dismissive. And they have the strength to leave through unknown terrain. That means they are in charge. And that is through body language. And if you look at the 3 attributes we need, confident, assertiveness, and in charge makes CAI. And it's easy to memorize. You can think of CIA, and then it's just not CIA. It's CAI. Yeah. Let's talk about group dynamics. What are we doing when the group starts to discuss? We stop them. There is no discussion in the workshop of the group. Nothing is there to discuss. Yeah. What are we doing when they do comments towards another participant? Like, oh, in this constellation, I have seen you were really under distress, and we shut them up. They are not supposed to talk to other participants. All communication goes through the leader. All communication, absolutely every single one, other than in the breaks, of course, then you leave them alone. But when you are facilitating, when you're leading the group, everybody has to address everything to you. And you decide what to take from that and what to make out of that and how you would like to address that to the group. That's your decision. Everything else is an overreach of the other person. Yeah. And brings the other participants that they are addressing it to into a defense mode. And you are letting your leadership, your reins glide. Yeah. Somebody else takes it over. What is if another participant wants to help another participant? And you see that often in the workshop. Somebody breaks out in tears because, this is the main tool of release in the workshop. A lot of tears are cried in a workshop, right? And then somebody else comes and wants to hug them, put the arms around. No, that's not allowed. They have to respect their space. Yeah, that's their space, their release. Don't make it about themselves. Somebody who's not involved. Yeah. So you have to stop them. If you see somebody starting to move towards somebody else, without asking you, you say, go back to where you are. Yeah. Important. You have to lead them. You can't let them to their own devices. They will make out of your family constellation a happening, an emotional happening. Yeah. And they want that, but they are not healing anything. And the family system sent them there for you to lead them so they can work. Yeah. That's it. They need to work there. They are not there for a feel-good, happy time, although they will have it afterwards, but not in the workshop. What are we doing when we have couples and friends and they want to hug? That's okay. That's their decision. Yeah. If they come together, which is never recommended, but they do that, and there's nothing wrong with it really, but it ends up in these kind of situations, yeah, that one has a breakthrough and then the other feels urged to hug them or say it's okay, on, you know, things like that, and so lessen the impact of the release, takes it away, makes it lesser than it could be, less strong. In this case, because they came together, they have decided to do that. They have already, you know, decided they have no boundaries in this relationship, then that's fine. You would let them do that. But that's the only exemption. One participant to the other, never, right? What is about distractions, right? Let's say they're noise distractions from the street, or you have hired a room in a venue, and all of a sudden there are children running in front of the window, up and down, and looking through the window and making faces and so on, right? That is also something that brings the group kind of into a situation where they want to take over, where you need to lead more to get the group together again. Yeah. So you must immediately stand up and say, ignore the noise, or shut the curtains for the windows, so the children cannot knock in the windows. You have to take over the lead when there are distractions before the group does it, because they like a group as a whole thing is like an entity, almost like an octopus with lots of arms, right? If they, and that's called group dynamic, if they become an entity, it is always against you. It's just what it is. Group dynamics always go against the leader for some reason. That is just kind of a natural phenomenon. So you don't want group dynamics to show at all. Always stay in the leadership role, and as soon as there's a distraction, you immediately react, take over the leadership, and you know what to do. And you express it to the group before they can even form their own opinion what to do with this. What is if the group turns towards against another participant, or even against the facilitator? Meaning that they all of a sudden, well, if they turn against another participant, you know already what to do. You tell them to be quiet, go to their place, and don't talk to anybody else than you, right? That's one thing that you can do. But what is if it happens to you? If they turn against you, because they're allowed to address you, and if they say, I think you should have done that differently. Let's say in the last constellation, right? That was really rude of you. Yeah. Why would you stop? Why would you shush this person? Yeah. What would you do with this? You would be, of course, a moment in stress, I suppose, because this is unexpected, right? And then what would you recognize? You would recognize that this person has an issue most likely with the father. Yeah. And you would say, okay, come here, you are next. And you would sit him on the hot chair. Yeah. And then see what happens. And they would be probably a little bit shocked, but in this case, this is the appropriate way to do it, to constellate. We're always using our methods. Yeah, that's why we are there. We are not referring to other sources. That's what we do. We solve problems, issues with the method of family constellation. However, if this participant, let's say this participant had already a constellation, then you would say to them, it would be good you come back, then we constellate your father issue. And that would make him really puzzled, because how would you know, right? And you take the role of the leader again. Yeah. So you're not reacting, of course not, to whatever he throws at you. Yeah. That would be he was leading. No, you lead. You make the decision what to do now. And it will something that will surprise him, most likely. That's the best way to deal with somebody who turns it. That doesn't happen. Don't be afraid. That doesn't happen very often, right? Doesn't happen very often. But just saying, this can happen, and it reminds you when it happens that you have now to actively take over the group leader role, the pack leader role again. So, how do we lead the representatives? First of all, we have to prepare them, especially if they haven't represented before. So there's a couple of words you would say at the beginning of your workshop. You would say, okay, when you are you are chosen as a representative, you are not talking. That's one thing. And if you want to talk, you raise your hand, and then I come and you whisper in my ear what you want to talk. And then I decide what and how you say it to whom, if you say it. Yeah. So make it absolutely clear. So you don't need to repeat it to a representative. It is kind of a rule that you set at the beginning of the workshop. The next thing is you prepare a representative by reassuring them that when they are called in a constellation, they don't need to do anything. They just need to relax. They just stand there. They just stand there, and whatever happens, happens. Yeah. The third thing they are all, especially the new ones, are worried about that they cannot decipher between their own mind, thought process, and resonating with the field. And you will reassure them at the beginning that doesn't matter what they think. If they think it's thinking, if they think it's fear, it doesn't matter. You can assure them, you as a facilitator, you know exactly what to make out of it. He doesn't need to be worried about it. Yeah. So that's another thing to prepare the representatives for their roles. And then a couple of other things you can address as well, that the movements from the field are always slow and not rushed. So when you can tell them, please go with your movement when you feel a movement, but not fast. It has to be slow. Practically step by step. Every step you take, you have to stop and check in with yourself. Is it still what I feel? Do I feel another movement, or is it that to here? Because it's super important that they stay exactly in the position that the field wants them to. Because for you, only this gives you the important information that you work with, right? It is very precise where they stand, where they look. Remember, we talked about the gesture, the eye contact, and all of these are all informations of the field. So when somebody is rushing from one end of the room to the other, you would ask them, come back to where they started and now take that slowly one step at a time. And then they might feel that they only can take 2 steps, and that's it. And that's important that you know that. So this is better to prepare all representatives together at the beginning of the workshop. But if one representative comes late, if a participant comes late, or hasn't understood everything, or wasn't focused when you said that, then you might have to repeat that in the constellation. Yeah. So that's no problem. You would remind him or her, yeah, about the rules of representing. The next question is, does the client is represented or not? This is a choice. You can ask your client, do you want to be represented or not? Sometimes you get the information that they need a representative, so you don't give them the choice. You say, okay, you choose a representative for yourself. And sometimes you get the information from the field that they should represent themselves. And then you would say, okay, you represent yourself. But if you don't get any of these very precise information, then you ask them, give them a choice. Often I feel it is best that they start with the representative, and then you might swap them within the constellation at a certain point and ask the client, when you feel they are ready now and you have observed the dynamic, and you are in the healing process, to swap with the representative and take the place. So it can be more, it can be kind of experienced by the client. For the movement of the souls, it does not matter, but for the intellect of the client, it does, yeah, to experience it themselves. It can be pitfall. I just remember a case when I asked, just recently, I asked somebody to jump in an interrupted movement towards the father, which I normally, you always want the interrupted movements to be then the movement towards the parent should then at one stage done by the client themselves, because it has a really stronger impact if they do it themselves. And I'd ask this participant in this case as well to do it. And then there was so much resistance, but the representative who already started the movement was willing to go further. So in this case, it would have been better not to swap the client. I mean, it was what it was, but you know, there is no 100% rule. There's always also an exemption to it. The question is, do you guide representatives in position or not? It was the old constellation, in the old family constellation, if you will. They have been guided by the client, put the hands on the shoulders, move them around in the room, and put them somewhere. You can still do that. It is also good to start like this. You can also sit back and say to everybody, so find your place in the room. That's probably something you would do after we have more experience. At the beginning, it is good to see where the client wants to put them, because it already gives you an interesting information, of course, right? Where the client sees the family members, where they should go. Here come again the word collected. Make sure they are focused on collected. I mean, have all the apples in the basket, yeah, and not scattered around, if you will. As a representative, not as a certain family member, as just in the role as a representative, yeah. And also, I found it helpful to ask them not to look at each other at the beginning, because some, especially if friends are coming, they start to giggle if they all of a sudden see each other in this weird situation of a family constellation for the first time. And that helps if they look at the floor first, look at the wall first, and then just slowly let their, you know, find their gaze where the gaze wants to go to. Then they intend to be more collected. That's my experience. Yeah. I told about that. Never let them talk to each other in a constellation. When they are representing, they only talk to you. Yeah, that always goes astray. There's always a constellation where somebody can't help to talk to the other. I forgive you. I forgive you. But then you say, stop, go back. What do you want to say? You want to say forgive. I forgive you. Say to them, please. Whatever you want, yeah? But you decide what they say, right? You don't let them talk in that way. And if they have already talked, they can take it back. You know, that's not a problem. It's okay. You just change the words for them. That's what I said. Advise them to raise a hand if they want to say something and look at you. And so you can go over and hear what they have to say. So when you have giggling and chatting in the room, that does happen when friends come. How we deal with it, if we say we address everyone better than singling out people out, and say, okay, everyone, go back to be collected, close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths, and when you open your eyes, don't look at each other. Just, you know, find a spot in the room where you want to stay, don't look at each other, and then see how the souls take over, and that will normally stop any of these giggling and chatting things. You also can ask the representative to change the positions, right? If you are guided to do so, if you have the information from the field, then yes, of course, let them change positions. Yeah. However, when the client wants to change positions of the representative, no, the client is not allowed to change, because the client is in their mind. They have a concept about the family dynamic, but the representatives are connected with the field. So the client is normally the one in the room who is the least connected with the family system. Yeah, always remember that. You and everybody else in the room is more connected with the family system than the client, right? So definitely they cannot, once the has been placed, the representative cannot jump in and change positions of the representative. When the representative wants to change their position, that's totally okay. It's more than okay. That's exactly what you want, because they are connected with the field. They get the information that this is not the right place. They need to go somewhere else, and then that is exactly where you draw your conclusion of. What dynamic do you have? What order is not obeyed? What's going on here, right? Who's missing? That's what you know once they start to move. The problem is when they don't move at all. That's a problem, because you don't have any information. But we will deal with that at another spot. Of course, there is a solution for that, what to do there. The facilitator can change the positions of the representative as well, but I would use this very sparingly, because you are relying on the representatives to give you information, not the other way around. Yeah. So you would ask them to say words and then see if this is freeing the soul movement. That's the preferred method. However, there is a situation when there is, for example, a representative standing in the back of another one, and they cannot physically see them, and you know that's the next step. Then you would ask the representative, turn around, look around. Yeah, and then they will turn around and look. And if it's not the right movement, then they would say, I'd rather go back where I was. So there's nothing wrong with asking to do that, as long as you are observing the representative if that was true or not true. Remember, we always ask a question, either silently to ourselves, or we ask it aloud out to the representative, was it true or not true? Being it a word, being it an emotion, being it a movement, doesn't matter. The representatives are connected with the field, and they have this innate natural capability to discern between truth and untruth, between right and wrong. They don't need to have a reason for that. They can answer your question, and they don't even know how they do it. And you can completely rely on this feedback. That's how we work. So, yes, you can also ask the representative to change words. That's what happens most of the time. The representative wants to say something like you don't want them to say, because it's kind of a long blurb and it has no strength. And your role is to shorten it into the sentences of resolution or the strong words. That's your role. So this is why they have to talk to you. And then you will ask them to rephrase it into a way that you know has a strong impact on the movement of the soul. So again, ramblings. Of course, you stop the representative as soon as you feel they are starting rambling. They should not even start, because they should exactly repeat what you asked them to do. But let's imagine they repeat. You ask them to say, please, and they repeat, please, and then they add, please, whatever, please, I feel lost without you. Yeah, that is not what you asked them to do, right? So the question is, would you allow that or not? And this is, you have to decide that. In this example, please, I'm lost without you, could have a good and strong impact and is helpful, or could be destructive. And then you would say, if it would be destructive, you would say, no, just say please. Just say please. Or say, please, I need you. That's your decision. Yeah, but rest assured, you will be guided as well by the morphic field to make the right decision. The decision that is right at this time, at this place. Very important. Please remember that there is no slang in family constellation. Huh? Oh, when somebody said, "Oh, it's okay, mate," yeah, that's slang. That has no impact on the soul. Yeah. Then you would say them, stop here. Say to them, yes. Just yes, and let it come from the heart. Yes. Yeah. So any kind of, this is why it's good to learn the sentences of resolution or create your own that are very alike, that you feel that have a high vibration, that are strong and have the impact to make souls move, and have it like as a tool in your kit set, in your toolbox, and then use it at the right time. Yeah. So you know when someone said, "Oh, mate, that's okay, I'm fine," then you say, "Yes, is here the right way?" It's just yes. Look also at the body language of the representatives and suggest the appropriate words that you see by the body language they are expressing, right? This is you remember, we start always with acknowledging what is. And how do we know what is? Body language, right? If there's a representative way tense towards somebody else, then you can suggest to say, "I'm angry," or you can suggest to say, "I'm afraid," or you can suggest to say, I'm insecure," right? Whatever comes to your mind, that would be an information of the field. And if he says that doesn't feel right when I say it, then you change it. And then you say, well, then try that or that or that. Yeah. So then you know what dynamic is starting to unfold in front of you. Only then. Refer to your toolkit and use the magic 3 words if you don't know any other. Don't think too long about the appropriate sentence. If no information comes to you, use one of the 3 words only, without explanation, without anything else, and ask them after, is it true? And if you say use yes, and they use yes, and then you ask, is it true? And they say no, then you say, okay, then use please. And then they use please, and you say, is it true? And then they say, it doesn't feel neither. And they, okay, then use thank you. And then they will finally find that is true, you know? So it is not a failure to go through all 3 words. Nobody is expecting you to know the right word in this situation at all times. That's not our job, you know? Our job is to provide this tool, these 3 words, to find what is right in this very moment. Okay, now very briefly, traps to fall into. The client takes over the lead. We talked about that briefly. I'm referring here to the situation where you have a participant, and you always have that. Not probably in every workshop, but you especially in larger workshops, you will find one that want to, it's very polite normally and very nice, but it wants to take over the lead. And how do you know that? Because they have the last word. They don't allow you as a facilitator to have the last word. They want to have the last word. And they can smile when they do that, but they still want to lead. And what they really want, they want to sit in your chair. What they really want, they want to facilitate, because they think they know it better. Yeah. And you often have that with experienced participants, right? But that's not the point. They are not in their chair. They are in another role there as a participant and a representative, and they have to acknowledge that. That's very, very important. So when this is happening, even though, let's imagine let's imagine, that's a very challenging example. Your teacher would be there. So let's imagine that a classmate of you sits there, somebody with you from the training, and you are in this chair. You want to facilitate, and the colleague is very polite and very nice, but suggests something to you, right? That is already a case that the client, when they would be in the role of the client, takes over the lead. And you would not allow that. You would say, you would not react to that first of all. Yeah, it is as if they haven't said that, and you would continue with what you were about to do. Yeah, that's the only way. If you just react to it with one word or a wink of your eye, yeah, you have already lost, so to speak, your position. Yeah. But you, and especially if you are resisting and you say, no, we don't do that to me, or something like that, you have already lost. Just completely ignore it and go ahead with what you were about to do. The group takes over the lead. That happens very rarely, but I'll talk briefly about it. That only happens when you have allowed the group dynamic to develop. Otherwise, they can't take over the lead, right? Because they are not an entity, they are individuals, right? But as soon as there's group dynamic going on, now they can actually take over the lead. So the remedy here is to go back to CAI and take the group leadership back, refer back to the pack rule. Make sure they are all individuals again. Make sure they are not an entity. How we do that? I find it helpful to get them all engaged in something they all can do together. For example, an exercise or a guided meditation. But never ever, whatever they come up with, respond to it. Your role as a group leader, as a pack leader, as a facilitator is never in question. Yeah? That is the one and only rule that you need to abide. Never in question. You never have to question. They are here because you are the facilitator. Yeah. So sometimes one person from the group wants to take over the lead. Of course, that can happen. That would be the same situation as when the client wants to take over the lead. You would not respond to that, and you would catch it immediately, and you would not, it is not up for discussion. You would just continue with what you were about to do. And it's not unpolite. You don't need to answer to each and every question, especially not as a leader. You don't need to answer to any questions. That is also something we need to learn, because we want to be polite, right? And you can also practice this in your daily life. I had done that years ago for quite a while. I decided that I'm not going to answer questions. Very simple questions like, how are you doing today? And I would not answer, oh, I'm good, or whatnot. I would just say something completely unrelated. I might ask them, how are you doing today? Right? Or I would just saying, what have you done today? I would just not answer the question. I would come up with my own thing, right? And that's really interesting, because they never ask you again. They, like, it is a dynamic that they immediately accept your leadership role, and they would answer your question. They would not say, I have never had that they said, I'm not answering your question before you answer my question. That's just not happening. Like, you take over the role as a leader when you do that. And it's great to practice that in your day-to-day life. Try it out. It is also fun. And it is also make you more assertive and more gives you more confidence to do that. What else do we have? Last but not least, making mistakes. There's only one way. No, two. First of all, knowing there are no mistakes, right? In the universe, there are no mistakes, only misunderstandings. That's the only thing that can happen to you. However, you can perceive it as a mistake, and then there's only one way: you own it. No fuss, no this, no that. Yeah, it is what it is, and move on. So, when you feel confused in a family constellation, yeah, because you lost sight of, maybe you have too many representatives, or you don't know in which dynamic you are in, right? Focus on the nearest family members, the family of origin. Just focus on mother, father, child. Yeah, and forget about all this complex. You would ask them all to sit down, yeah, and continue with mother, father, child. And you may take it from there. Maybe that develops more, or this is maybe everything that is needed. Often there is something that everybody can work on, yeah, and you are back into focus, and you are not losing your confidence as a facilitator and leader. Remember to lead with wisdom and not with authority. Yeah, so you can be strict, but in love but in unconditional love towards the participants. Yeah, as an authority, you think you are the ruler and you are better than others. As a leader, you acknowledge everybody in the same way, but you know you have more knowledge and wisdom, and they just don't know it. That's all. That's the only difference. And that's the right position of leading. And it will be felt by everyone. Everyone loves leaders that leading from wisdom, not from authority. Another trap to fall into is not closing a constellation at the right time. That's very common in beginners. You need to feel the peak of the constellation when there is the highest energy. And you always look at the client and the representative of the client. And if there is a sigh of relief, that's it. Regardless if you think there's a lot more going on, that's it. That's the end of the constellation. If you now would go on more, you would lose the power of the constellation to an extent that you might miss, that you might don't know where to stop it. And after an hour, you still not stop because you just don't know where to stop it. Yeah. So we are only waiting for not the final movement. There is no such thing. The final movement of the soul is outside of the constellation. We are waiting for the how can I say, the peak of the energy. You will feel that. Yeah, there's a strong energy, and it can be even without a sigh of relief. It can be also when everybody is still tense. It's better to break it up there than overdoing it, because this is allowing the movements of the soul to continue and continue and continue after the constellation. So remember, that's really a trap to fall into. You are not supposed to provide a happy end. That's not your job. It goes in line with that, wanting to finish a constellation. So you think, oh, I never felt really this peak where I would like to break it up. Now I need to finish the constellation. I need to find like an end frame, if you will, for the constellation, right? Not needed. If you think you lost it and you think it goes nowhere, break it up there. Just break it up there. That's it. Just ask everybody to sit down again. That was it. You don't need to explain to anybody why you finish something and why you break it up, or why that is the moment where you want to everybody to leave the field. You don't need to explain yourself. Traps. Another trap is overlooking an important fact or person in a constellation. That's, you might call that a mistake. I call that like a misunderstanding, right? Trust that that was what was offered. in this. And you just have to go back to the trust and acknowledging that it's meant to be that way. Yes, you would have probably in another constellation put the mother there, but in this you didn't. And for some weird reason that you don't even know, this was the right decision because it was led by the field. Yeah. So don't hang, another thought on it. Just go on with the next constellation. Yeah. And if you're asked, why didn't you put the mother in there? Right. Then you said at this moment the mother wasn't needed. Otherwise she would have been there. We are always trusting the fear. Then the next trap would be the client wants to talk about the meaning of the constellation. Another trap, because first of all, it's recommended not to talk too much about them outside the training, of course, not to talk so much about the meaning of a constellation, to not disturb the movement. And the other trap is also that the client is taking over the lead when he tries to interview you about his or her constellation. So the best thing here is I find like a middle way. I would say one explanation about the constellation, yeah, and then leave it there, not going on. Just one thing. Like I would say, here you have seen an entanglement. Here, now let's say here you have seen a dismissed victim of your grandfather's whatever actions in the Second World War. That's it, and that's the explanation. Now you're not going on what a victim-perpetrator relationship is, why they look like, not. You just give one explanation and then you ask them to sit back on their chair. Yeah. What is if the client is not satisfied with the result? Of course, it can happen, right? They would probably, when you ask, how are you feeling now? They would say most likely disappointed. So, yeah, that's great. That's great because they are, they are working with whatever comes up. You have, rest assured, done whatever the family system asked you to do. And now that is what the client gets. And if the client doesn't understand that, that's totally fine. They don't need to understand that. Yeah. And you are not constellating and facilitating for persons just for them to come back. You are there because the family system wanted you to do that, and you did that. And you know that the family system is moving, even though the client doesn't feel that, because they are so much in their mind, full of expectations. That's all there is. There's nothing to do with your work. So, oh gosh, we're almost half an hour over. I don't know where we lost the half hour. I have no idea. So I'm finishing today with a quote, and that's from Bert Hellinger. No, that's from Bert Hellinger's favorite poet. It's a German poet. I don't know whether you know them, Rainer Maria Rilke, and Bert Hellinger has cited them everywhere, and he was absolutely obsessed with him. And I love him too, of course. I'm not obsessed with him, but this is a quote from him. If you have this love for what's humble and try, very simple, as someone who serves to win the confidence of what seems poor, then everything will become easier for you, more coherent, and somehow more reconciling, not in your conscious mind perhaps, which stays behind, astonished, but in your innermost awareness, awakeness, and knowledge. Yeah? And I leave you with that, and I'm looking forward to see you tomorrow. Have a good day, good night. Bye.